Hi folks, HR Funk here. Now before some of you get yourselves worked into a frenzy over the title of this video, let me point out the fact that the title is followed by a question mark. That means it's asking a question, not making a statement. And when you see that in one of the titles to my videos, what that means is in the video, we're going to explore that question. So in this video, I'm going to explore the question as to whether or not Glocks suck. Now today's video comes about more or less as a follow-up to one that I produced all the way back in 2014, so now 8 years ago, which was titled Why I Don't Prefer the Glock Pistol. And in that video I laid out all the various attributes of the Glock handguns and my opinion as to why they become so prevalent in the defensive handgun market. And I also explained all the various reasons that I did not prefer carrying or using Glock handguns. And to date, that's been one of my most viewed and definitely one of my most commented upon videos. And in fact, I've received routine comments on that video up to and including this morning, even though it's 8 years old. And at the time that I produced that video, I had some pretty strong feelings about the Glock handguns and why I didn't prefer them. But, and this is a pretty big but, at that time, though I had handled and fired Glock handguns, I'd never been issued one nor trained with one extensively. Well, now that has changed. For the last year and a half, this Generation 5 Glock 19 has been my issued duty handgun, and my current employer requires us to train and shoot routinely with these firearms, so at this juncture I have done a lot of training and a lot of shooting with this particular pistol, and I'm going to talk about whether or not my opinion of the Glock handguns has evolved. So after a year and a half of what I would call extensive use of the Glock 19, what do I think of these handguns in general? First off, I'll say a lot of the things that I discussed in that original 2014 video I found to be true. It's a very durable, very reliable handgun. For daily use and daily carry, about the only thing I ever have to do is pull this out of the holster and dust it off a little bit, and it holds up to wear and tear from handling, use, etc. very, very well. It's an extremely low maintenance platform, which anyone who has ever used one of the Glock handguns already knows. It's an extremely simple handgun. So again, all those various attributes that I talked about back in that first video really have borne out to be true. I've not seen anything with this particular handgun or Glock handguns in general that leads me to believe the things that I talked about back then as to why this has become so dominant in the defensive handgun market and why so many people prefer Glock handguns has been in error. When it comes to reliability, again, the things that I said back in 2014 have borne out to be true. This has been a very, very reliable handgun. I've never experienced any type of a malfunction with this particular Glock 19. Now, that said, I have seen some of my co-workers experience malfunctions with their Glock handguns. So there is nothing mythical about Glock handguns. They are not immune to malfunction. Just like every other semi-automatic handgun ever produced, they are completely dependent upon their ammunition, the shooter not inducing a malfunction, and some periodic maintenance to make sure things like recoil assemblies, etc., are kept in proper functioning order. So as long as the pistol is fed good ammunition, so long as it's maintained, and so long as the shooter knows how to operate it properly without causing a malfunction, these are extremely, extremely reliable handguns. So what about actually shooting the Glock handguns? I can say at this juncture that features like the trigger and the sights are certainly adequate. They are not in any way tremendously impressive. One of the things I talked about in that original 2014 video is I don't care for the trigger on the Glock handguns. I still don't care for the trigger on the Glock handguns and that sproing sort of feeling that they have. And a lot of people, when they comment on that video, one of the things they will talk about is that they have changed the trigger to some aftermarket option that they like better, and now they really, really like their Glock handgun, which is fine for them. But for folks like me who are issued handguns and cannot change the trigger, we have to be able to live with whatever the factory installs. And I really don't feel any difference in the trigger in this 5th generation Glock as I did all the way back with those original triggers in the mid 1980s when the Glock pistols first hit the US market. I don't care for it. I can use it. I can shoot this thing accurately, but I just don't prefer it. The sights, again, are adequate. Now, a lot of people are very critical of the sights. Even people that are complimentary of the rest of the Glock in general don't care for the sights. I think they're adequate. They don't bother me. I'm able to shoot with them. I'm able to hit with them. I've not experienced any problem during the time that I've used this handgun with the rear sight being moved or anything like that. It still tends to put bullets exactly where I have the sights aimed. So no problem with the sights. And again, with sights and trigger, I would say that they are adequate. And when it comes to shooting the Glock pistol, with sufficient training, you can shoot this pistol accurately. Speaking of accuracy, that's one area that I have also not seen improve from the earliest Glocks to this 5th generation Glock. They are what I would call combat accurate or defensive accurate, but they are certainly not tack-drivingly accurate pistols. Now, they're in the same ballpark as a lot of other defensive handguns when it comes to accuracy. Most defensive or fighting handguns are not intended to have match grade accuracy, and I would put the Glock in that same boat. So it's certainly not an inaccurate pistol, but it's probably not going to win any bullseye competitions anytime in the near future. How about grip circumference, contour, and the pointability of the Glock handguns? I still don't like the grip on these handguns. It's still, after all this training and all this shooting, this pistol does not point naturally, and as I pointed it just now, the front sight is high. I always have to watch for that and make certain that I have the sights properly aligned. The pistol just does not point well for me, and I always have to take that extra second to make sure that I have the front sight properly down in the rear sight notch before I start my trigger press. So I still don't care for the grip of this, and a lot of people have talked about, you train through that, you get to the point where you're able to point the pistol naturally. Maybe that's true for them. I'm not calling anyone a liar. But for me, I have just never found that with a lot of shooting now, a lot of shooting with this pistol, it's still, and just did it again, I have the front sight high, and if I'm not careful, especially as my distance starts to increase from the target, I'll start to put shots high. So I still don't like the grip. The pistol still doesn't point naturally for me. It still requires sort of a long reach to release the magazine. So the grip is something, and this was one of my big criticisms in that first video all the way back in 2014. Now I can say, after a lot of shooting with this pistol, I still don't like the grip. It still is not as good for me as a lot of other options. If you saw the recent video that I produced where I was shooting my Smith & Wesson M&P 9, I had not shot that pistol for months. And I pulled it out of the safe, took it out to the range to make a video, and I was putting shots just almost with my eyes closed right where I wanted them to go, because that pistol points so naturally for me, and I have never ever developed that same sort of a feel for the Glock 19 or any other Glock handgun for that matter. So to answer the question posed in the title of the video, do Glocks suck? No, they don't suck. They are adequate for a lot of shooters. They certainly have performed very, very well over the years, but I still don't prefer them. There are still a lot of other handguns that I would rather carry. In fact, I wish I could trade this one for some other options that work much better for me. And that's the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 5% off anything you purchase from Optics Planet. Also remember the new discount code from Hot Munitions. If you go to Hot Munitions, you can use my discount code there, which is HRFunk10, and that'll save you 10% off your purchase from Hot Munitions. See you next time, folks. And until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.